And thank you now for joining us. I am Frank Komalape. We'll begin from the Federal Capital Territory, where the National Assembly today resumed from its Christmas and New Year break to attend to pending issues of national interest, one of which is the request by the President Muhammadu Buhari for restructuring of ways and means advances from the Central Bank of Nigeria. On December 28, 2022, the National Assembly passed the 2023 Appropriation Bill, the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Bill, and the Finance Bill 2022, and embarked on the break. A few days earlier, Buhari had requested the Senate and the House of Representatives to approve the restructuring of the ways and means given to the federal government by the CBN, noting that the balance as of December 19 of last year was 23.7 trillion naira. While the House has yet to consider the presidential request, it suffered a setback at the Senate on December 28, 2022, after the chamber gave it accelerated processing. Buhari later warned that the country will pay 1.8 trillion in additional interest this year if the National Assembly rejected a loan to bond swap request on the CBN overdraft to the government. And in the meantime, Nigeria's inflation rate eased for the first time in 11 months to 21.34%. The country's inflation rate had risen for 10 consecutive months up to November 2022, when it reached 21.47%. The National Bureau of Statistics in its latest report Monday said the country's inflation rate showed a decline of 0.13% between November and December last year. The report says in December last year, the headline inflation rate is to 21.34% compared to November 2022 headline inflation rate, which was 21.47%. In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari has said the African Continental Free Trade Agreement reforms will increase Nigeria's non-oil export to other African countries by more than 15%. Buhari stated this yesterday at the 9th African Shippers Day with the theme African Continental Free Trade Agreement, a veritable platform for African shippers to maintain or mainstream into global trade held in Lagos. Buhari listed the export goods to include textile, wearing apparel, leathers, wood and papers, metals, electronics, vehicles and transport equipment, machineries for the industrial sectors. Others are fishery, meat, poultry, milk and dairy products, rice, other cereals, plant-based fibers and other crops, fruits, vegetables, nuts, vegetable oils and other food products, beverages and tobacco, as well as livestock for agriculture and food sectors. Buhari was represented by the Minister of State for Transportation, Ademola Adeguruye, said Nigeria's export will increase significantly to other African sub-regions outside the West African, with most impressive expansions to countries such as Botswana, Cameroon, Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, Malawi, Morocco, Mozambique, Namibia, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. He said also owing to Nigeria's sheer economic size, the country is among African nations expected to experience the largest absolute expansion in intra-African export, and also the ECOWAS member expected to receive the largest boost to intra-African exports. And now, organized labor has thwarted a plan by the federal government to monitor the implementation of the National Minimum Wage Act of 2019, describing it as coming too late in the day. The federal government, through the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission, announced that it will begin a nationwide monitoring of the implementation of the National Minimum Wage Act 2019 beginning from January 2023. The exercise, which is coming just a year another minimum wage review as enshrined in the Act, is aimed at ascertaining the level of compliance by public and private employers' organizations that are liable in line with the provisions of the Act for the payment of the monthly minimum wage of 30,000 Naira, and to ensure that employers keep adequate records of wage conditions of service of employees. But the National President Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria, Tomi Okon, in an interview said the monitoring exercise is just a political gimmick. He said what is expected of the government at this time is to increase the workers' pay to meet up with the prevailing socio-economic realities. And now the Ship Owners Association of Nigeria has disagreed with the Maritime Administration and Safety Agency's request for its merger with the Nigerian Indigenous Ship Owners Association as a prerequisite over the disbursement of $350 million and 16 billion Naira cabotage vessels financing fund. The Massa had last week met with NISA, another faction of ship owners in the country, and asked the two factions to merge to enable it to disburse the cabotage vessels financing fund. The SOAN has faulted the NIMASA's request, saying that cabotage law should be followed in the disbursement of the fund. It added that coming together of both NISA and SOAN should not be a criterion for the disbursement of the fund. It would be recalled that the chairman of the Cabotage Fund Committee of NISA, Edward Soho, while speaking with journalists after the committee's meeting with the Director General of NIMASA, Bashiru Jamo, in Lagos last week, said Jamo asked NISA and SAWAN to merge and become one indigenous ship owners association before the fund can be disbursed. Reacting to this, the president of the association, Mark George Oyang, said nobody has the right to bring conditions for the disbursement of the fund. He said that coming together was a wish and not part of the requirement for the disbursement of the fund. And now the Bank of Industry says World Bank has approved its nomination as provider of the MSME component of NGKS nationwide. The BOI said the development was based on the Bank of Industry's successful track record of building field networks and technology infrastructure for the transparent implementation of the MSME intervention programs. According to reports, the NGKS is an initiative of the World Bank and the federal government of Nigeria to support the recovery of communities, households, and businesses affected by COVID-19. They said the program is state-owned and state government were fully responsible for funding and selection of beneficiaries. Bank of Industry stated that the funding arrangement allow each state the autonomy to allocate their preferred grant sizes and number of grants across different program components as approved by the World Bank. It added that following the nomination, 28 out of 33 states chose Bank of Industry as their preferred execution partner to leverage the bank's MSME infrastructure to deliver NGKs. And away from there now, President Muhammadu Buhari has called on African countries to expand their participation in international trade in order to grow African export trade beyond the current 3%. The president in Lagos at the 9th United Africa Ship Owners meeting with the theme African Continental Free Trade Agreement, a veritable platform for African shippers to mainstream into global trade, hosted by the Nigerian Shippers Council, said the expansion of African export trade will help to create wealth, generate employment, reduce poverty on a larger scale, and transform the African economies. Buhari, who was represented at the event by the Minister of State for Transportation, Ademola Adegoroyu, said the implementation of the EFCFTA was crucial to expanding African participation in international trade. He, however, said that African governments must develop appropriate supporting policies, build the requisite infrastructure, and ensure an educated workforce for EFCFTA to have positive influence on long-term investment in productive capacity. The president further said that the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa has forecast that the EFCFTA could boost intra-African trade by 52%, with the industrial sector gaining the most.